before we introduce our two sets of speakers today, this is a brand new thing for Creative Mornings we're trying out. I want to talk to you about the theme game. This was chosen by our Malecha chapter, I believe that's how you pronounce it, illustrated by Jeffrey Phillips and presented by our buddies at Malecha. So I think the cool thing about Game for Minneapolis is, I don't know if you guys know this, I learned this pretty recently, Minneapolis has a humongous gaming scene. We have some of the biggest board game manufacturers in the country, in the world. We have game designers. We've had a lot of really successful Kickstarter campaigns coming out of this area. So it's a really cool area to explore creativity and design and collaboration and teamwork. And that's what we're going to do this morning through our two speakers. So what we're going to do is I'm going to introduce our first speaker. We're going to give them a couple minutes to talk. Then I'll introduce our next pair of speakers. And then we're going to do a joint Q&A. Does that sound good? Okay, so our first speaker this morning is Jeff Tidball. Jeff has done tons of stuff in the gaming world over the last couple decades in game design, game manufacturing, working at different companies. He's also going to talk a little bit about a thing called the white box. You want me to say anything else? Is that pretty good? That's good. There we go. He's come to Creative Mornings a lot as an attendee, so let's preemptive. Sorry. Cheer for Jeff.
Hi, I would like to begin with a vote. Who believes in the power of creativity and thinks that that is excellent? And who would like to vote for mornings? You would do whatever as long as it's in the morning. Colonoscopies and tax preparation and all of these things. I think mornings are fine, but I believe in the power of creativity, okay? I bring that up because I want to say kind of three things that orbit around the idea of creativity, but that are related to tabletop games. And the first thing, well, let me step back. I played Dungeons & Dragons for the first time in 6th grade. And I thought that was the very most awesome thing ever. And that drove me to become a game designer. That was really a foundational experience that led me to where I am today. And I have left professional game design forever twice. But I'm back doing it because creativity is just bound up in what we do here. So tabletop games are amazing, I think, because they're creative. There are different kinds of games, and they all have creativity bound up inside them. So if you played Dungeons & Dragons or any other tabletop role-playing game, show of hands, ever in your life. This is a fun pastime where people sit around and tell a story, so it is creative on the face of it in addition to being a game. Have you ever played a collectible card game like Magic the Gathering or Pokemon or anything like that? Yep. All right. So this is a game where there's a metagame on top of it that's creative, where you collect cards and select them and put them into decks and think about how you're going to play them. If that sounds like sports, or if that sounds like starting a small business, I think you're right. I think those are creative things. Have you played a miniatures game like Warhammer 40,000 or War Machine? Yep. These are games where the gameplay itself is almost incidental to the hobby. The hobby is painting stuff like this and creating models, and people do amazing, amazing creative work that is bound up in this game. All right, so all of these things are creative. Obviously, creating tabletop games is also a creative thing to do. And one of the things that I want to suggest is that if you have creative ambitions, such as to write a novel or to start a startup or to direct a short film, you should put creating tabletop games like board games and card games and role-playing games inside of that set of things that maybe you could do, whether it's to the side of your career or as your career. These are amazing things to make. And it is not necessarily obvious to people who are outside this professional world, but there has not ever been a better time to be involved in tabletop games than right now. It is the golden age of tabletop games. If you watch TV at all, you are perhaps aware that it is the best time ever to watch 60-minute dramas. There are so many amazing shows right now, and it is like that in tabletop games. Our best information about how many games come from game distributors. They think that last year somewhere between 3,000 and 5,000 tabletop games were released. More than 8 a day. And this probably undercounts independent releases that don't go into distribution or PDF-only releases, all kinds of games. So there are a ton of games, and so what I want to suggest to you about that if you are not already part of this business or hobby or industry is that if you have ever looked inside a game store and seen a bunch of stuff like this, which is great, right? There are dragons and wizards and all kinds of other nonsense. If that is not for you, if that seems to you like samey, lame-ass J.R.R. Tolkien stuff that maybe is spray painted on the side of a if that is not for you, there is still a game for you. There are games with all kinds of amazing stuff. Peter Woken is here. He did the graphic design on a game called Sagrada, published locally from Floodgate Games, which is about the beauty of stained glass, essentially. Okay, so I'm aware of at least 2 different Jane Austen games. There is a game for everyone. I am so passionate about this idea that games are for everyone. If you're interested in this and cannot find out which game is for you, call me on the phone or send me an email. I'm completely serious about helping you find the game for you if you are remotely interested in this, okay? There is, in addition to all of this passion and enthusiasm I have for tabletop games, a creative lesson or idea that comes from work in creating tabletop games that I think is useful more broadly for people who are creative and involved in creative disciplines. This idea comes to me by way of Ken Hite, who is one of the best tabletop game writers working now or ever probably. So I want to give credit to him because this is mostly his idea. Stepping back for a minute, this idea arises out of the fact that the number of people that you need to make a creative thing varies, right? The ideal team size depends on what you're making. So, if you are writing a novel, probably not 6 people. If you're painting, probably 1 person at a time. But if you want to create enterprise software or start a company that can make a huge impact or erect a building, probably tons of people, companies, gigantic teams. There are a bunch of good 2-person enterprises, and that's where tabletop games sort of fits in. This is almost an ideal team size for making the kinds of games that I'm extremely passionate about. The question then sort of arises, what should the people who are going to create that be like? And it leads us to a really interesting lens for how we can think about different kinds of creative people. So what 2 creative people do you need? The interesting thing about thinking about creative people in terms of Bert and Ernie are that probably you grew up with these characters and they literally helped wire your brain. So I don't have to say very much, or I can just leave and probably one of you can lead the rest of this part because you understand intuitively what are the personalities of these 2 characters and what might they bring to a creative thing. I'm not going to do that annoying thing where the presenter reads the slide verbatim. Would someone volunteer to read this slide verbatim?
Ernie. Ernie is creative and impulsive and wants to make great, big expressions. He likes rubber duckies, bubble baths, and singing songs.
Indeed he does. Thank you very much. All right. And can we have a Bert volunteer?
Bert likes things to be organized and buttoned down and squared away. His most cherished possession is a paperclip collection.
I think Bert is awesome. It occurred to me the first time I was presenting this idea about Bert and Ernie, that he collects things that collect other things. So I think that Bert and Ernie are really interesting lenses that we can use to think about the ways creative people approach their work, right? Ernie imagines ideas and imagines new ideas inside an existing framework, and he kind of ignores the bullshit that he is not interested in. Bert organizes things and makes budgets and makes timelines and cares very deeply that everyone receives the email that describes how we are falling behind. But an interesting thing happens when people are exposed to this idea is they start to look at the other people that are on their creative teams and kind of sort them out, but also to celebrate the idea that people bring these different creative personalities. An important thing, though, to remember is that this is about proportion. No one is 100% Bert or 100% Ernie. And so I can be a good test case example, right? And this is 3 different versions. I would love to be able to be a person who was a mixed proportion on this. I think probably I'm more like this middle line, but sometimes I fear that I'm too much with the emails about how we are behind schedule. But I find this an extremely useful exercise in thinking about this. I know that I've sat out in the audience in Creative Mornings and seen lots of people who make amazing illustrated note sets. If you're a note taker or whatever, it is interesting to just write down for yourself. I'm not going to make anybody share that, but what proportion do you think you are of each of these? It's been a really useful exercise for me to think about that, so maybe do that if you're interested. This next slide is like a 2-hour presentation all itself. We'll do it in about 7 seconds. This is what the process looks like to create a tabletop game. And you could build a process diagram like this for whatever else. A website or software process has lots of copywriting and art, but also a bunch of coding and scheduling. Building a building's got something like this. Creating a music video's got something like this. When I do a presentation that is about this process for people who are interested in creating a tabletop game, but do not know anything about it, lots of people look at this and think that about half of the stuff on there looks amazing, and about half of it makes them want to throw up. The good news, well, right, so then, are you terrified yet of that thing I asked him? Yeah, it's terrifying, but the good news is that if you look around, the other people in the audience are terrified of the other half of this stuff. Right? So your counterpart is around here somewhere. The person who wants to be the Bert to your Ernie or the Ernie for your Bert, or in whatever proportion it is that needs to be mixed up. The good news is that creative people can work together and bring those different strengths to projects. All right? Who has seen the Piano Guys, either on video or in person? Oh, go seek this out and watch it. You're my hero in the purple shirt. Well done. This is a music group that is extremely, extremely interesting and unusual in that only 2 of these people actually perform music. The 3rd and 4th people are an audio engineer and a video producer who are like named complete members of this group. So that's the first thing that I think is amazing about these people. The second thing that I think is amazing are the videos that they produce, because they're bonkers. They do things like record a music video literally on top of the Great Wall of China. And so it becomes clear how this requires both amazing Ernie performance, but also intense Bert preparation. How do we even get permission to shoot on top of the Great Wall of China, much less carry a grand piano up the stairs? They shot this video on top of a 100-foot pillar of rock in Bryce Canyon in Utah. Bert has to hire a helicopter so that they can land. Right? This simply can't take place without both of these complementary creative skills. Okay? All right. Quickly to recap, I think that tabletop games are amazing because they are creative in addition to being fun. There has never been a better time for you to get involved in it if it remotely interests you. And this idea of Bert and Ernie approaches to creativity is useful, even if you are not interested in tabletop games. 2 quick things. If you are interested in playing tabletop games and don't know where to start, I'm not involved in any of these games, but they are amazing places to start. Secret Hitler is a social game where you talk to people in attempts to find out where the fascists are hidden amongst everyone. Everyone professes to be a liberal, but some of you are fascists, and one of you is Hitler. And you have to sort it out by talking. Fuse is completely different. This is a game that always lasts exactly 10 minutes. You're working together to try to defuse a bomb. You roll dice as fast as you can and put them on these cards that are all parts of defusing the bomb. This is an amazing game. Fiasco is a tabletop role-playing game that is essentially the Coen Brothers movie role-playing game. It pitches itself as the game of powerful ambition and poor impulse control. So if tabletop role-playing games interest you, that is an amazing place to start. Pandemic, this is a This photo is from Board Game Geek. These two people on the night of their wedding were playing Pandemic together. It's a cooperative board game, so everybody works together. So if you have bad experiences of people throwing Monopoly boards and flipping Trivial Pursuit tables, Pandemic is a game where everybody works together to eradicate disease. So that's amazing. I'm completely serious about calling me or emailing me if these four don't work for you. Last thing, if you are remotely interested in trying tabletop game design, this is a project that I worked on last year that we kickstarted. The White Box is a game design workshop in a box. So the box contains a ton of components, cubes and meeples and dice and chips and nonsense like that, and a book that has got 200 pages of 25 essays of things that you might want to know if you're going to try to design a game. How do you distribute it? How do you concept it, play test it, bring it to conventions? So if you're interested in this, have a look at that. Games are awesome. Thank you very much.
That was fun. All right, we're not done yet. We got one more mini talk coming up, okay? So we got Austin and Matthew up next. You guys ready?
Yeah.
Y'all ready? All right, jump on up here. Yeah, let's give them a round of applause. These guys work for a company called Trailhead Games. We just learned about these guys pretty recently. They do awesome experiential games with kids and adults to teach lessons, anything from creativity and collaboration and teamwork to social activism and other things. So here we go. You guys ready? All right.
All right, let's give it a warm round of applause for the Creative Mornings team for putting on into yourselves for came out so early in the morning to be here. Give yourselves a round of applause. So, you all have mission cards. If you haven't looked at them, look at them now, because we are going to play a very quick game. And the name of that game is Don't Get Trampled. The objective of the game is don't get trampled. So here's how it's going to work. You are going to go from your seat to the exact near opposite in the same row that you're in. So if you're 3 seats to the right, you want to end up 3 seats to the left. And you're not going to get up until the music and the countdown starts, because you only have 45 seconds to do this, and make sure to fulfill your mission. So get ready. Great. Watch out for ninjas. They're everywhere. Good strategy, going all the way around. 25 seconds left. You're still standing. "13 seconds. 10 seconds. Run." Oh my gosh, someone's been trampled. Find a seat, find a seat. Everybody, my partner's not here. Start chanting for him. Matthew, 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 Matthew. There he is. Oh my gosh, a narwhal on seat. Wow, you look great. Thank you, thank you. It's the greatest introduction I've ever gotten. Yes! My believers out there, I thank you very much. Now, I haven't always been a magical creature. I grew up like the rest of you, playing board games like Risk, trading magic cards, and playing just about every game in the street that you can play. I love games, and I got to apply that in my life to teaching education, bringing it into the classroom, and then onward to youth mentorship. In 2012, I met Austin, my best friend and counterpart, and we met at a summer camp where they created something I had never seen before. At this place, we created immersive worlds with skits and storylines that the campers and the staff would step into, and it was like stepping into another world.
Games like Spies, which we played last year. Campers assumed identities with secret missions, running around trying to complete objectives. The most absurd and zany game I've ever experienced. Organized mass chaos everywhere. The List. And before it was a movie, it was played at summer camp. Ragnarok, the campers, a tower defense game trying to recreate the Norse apocalypse.
So we took these games, and in 2015, we created Trailhead Games with the intention of bringing creativity and collaboration to a much larger stage. So summer camps are definitely our bread and butter, but we've moved into team building and workplace training, and next week for the first time, we're running an education game here in the Whittier neighborhood for the Jefferson School about how we can build a clean energy future and how kids can have a positive impact on climate change.
Now, the most important and most exciting thing about us is that we're bringing play into the educational world. Now, if you're here, you probably already know the benefits of play. Jeff spoke to the creativity. Who here likes to play? Right. Wouldn't it be more exciting to be active? So, there are a lot of talks and research going out now as to the benefits of play. You can go read about them, watch them, or you can look at my Spark notes here. Ultimately, play leads to better health, connection, learning, collaboration, passion, and efficacy. We see these in many different areas, and I would assert that it's not only with kids, but we continue to play as adults, and all of these things are still present.
Yeah, so when I was a young camp counselor, I wanted to create the most epic and amazing experience possible. So I had a group of 25 9 to 12-year-olds, very impressionable minds, and I had to do something epic, something so amazing that would blow their minds. So I decided to convince them that A, aliens were real, and B, the aliens were coming to get them. And this is no easy feat. This takes time, preparation. It's the long con. So I started off by writing fake articles from the Washington Post, New York Times. I created a fake explosion in the woods, and we found debris, and they doubted. They're like, well, this isn't real, you guys are just messing with us. But, knowing me, I'm like, okay, I gotta take this to the next level. So I went inside their cabins, and I found the letters that their parents wrote them. And I studied their sentence structure and how they sign off. Billy, don't forget to brush your teeth. XO, XO, mom. And when I saw their faces when they read the letters about the aliens and the stuff going on in the outside world, I knew we had them. So we did that for a few more days, cultivating an epic night mission. We took the kids into the woods, deep into the woods, and we told stories about what the future could look like with aliens and technology. And I was sitting behind a tree, and I made an explosion, and everybody was on edge. A counselor came to investigate. He goes down, rises up, foaming at the mouth, walking back towards the campus. I hear one of the campers say, "Ronnie, say something!" Another counselor approaches. Ronnie grabs him by the neck. He goes down. He rises up, foaming at the mouth. And now, there's two counselors, two people they trust, walking towards them. All hell broke loose. They started screaming, and they sprinted almost a mile back to the campfire circle. And it was in that moment they all thought they were going to die. So maybe I took it too far. But here's what I really like about it. We created an immersive, epic world where the kids actually thought that aliens were real. The part that wasn't so good is they didn't get to opt in. They had no choice in this. So this actually wasn't play for some of them because they cried themselves to sleep that night.
So, needless to say, we've had a lot of opportunities to learn over the years. And what we've realized most is that many of the games that we think we're playing aren't actually really play at all. The mindset when we're in these games are reactive, they're stressed, we feel pressure to be there. And over the years, we've realized that the thing that makes games most successful is their ability to inspire play. So this has kind of become our criteria of what a successful game invokes in people. Think of the last time that you were in a mindset in which these were present, in which you wanted to be there, in which the means were more important than the ends, in which you felt that you were free to create what you wanted to create, and there wasn't the stress or the pressure biting at you to do it in a certain way. We've connected that this is the spirit of what we're doing, and this is the heart of it. Now, if we can do that, that's great. Now, how we do that is the next slide. This is what we think is most important for how we're creating these games. We take the spirit of it and we overlay it with creative storylines, creative characters. We get people moving and interacting with each other. We create a world in which they're open to engage with it how they want to. And most of all, we are seeing the powerful impacts and the potential that games have, and we make our games intentional.
So here's a different game, a different experience. This one does not scare the crap out of children. It actually makes a difference in the world. So this game, we partnered with an organization called Generation Atomic that works on nuclear advocacy. And players were split up into two teams, citizens and organizers. The citizens did silly things like run around the room, chasing the bus, walking their fake dog on a leash, and the organizers had to have real conversations with them. And this is a clip from this game in action.
Right? Camera. Oh, there's an age. I told someone asked me to spell love. Oh, you already got to spell love.
So first off, great song. But there are 4 things that I love about this. Number 1, this game is interactive. So all these people are nuclear engineers who never met each other, and they work together and even initiated conversations with strangers about nuclear energy. 2, the game was collaborative and creative. They made posters and signs and chants and a lot of creative projects in this game to show their love for the career that they're going to embark on. Number 3, real change happened in this game. So every time they posted to Twitter, or every petition that was signed, every phone call that was made to a legislator in this game, over 100 plus actions were real actions that went into the world. And number 4, this guy right here, walking his dog.
And it's silly, and it's also so beautiful, because this is a model of change. And not just a model of change for nuclear, it's also a model of change for the culture of nuclear. It's a model of change for the way that these people interact with each other and that they will interact with our world. So our dream is to foster that. And we want to do that on both the individual level, and we also want to inspire people to embrace the culture of play. We do it by creating games, and there are lots of ways that we inspire play. If you leave here and you inspire play in one other person, that is the shift that will happen. I want to leave with one question, and I want you to answer it with your partner about 15 seconds each. And that question is, what area or culture of your life would you be most excited to bring play to? Share for a second. Seconds. Bringing it back. And crush. So hopefully these conversations will continue. And we're excited to hear, we're excited to talk about your ideas. That's all the time that we have for today. Thank you very much.